back again. It's the Horror Guys. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're here to talk about some horror movies.
Episode 117. Wow, we've been doing this a while now.
It's kind of a Vincent Price, Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe kind of week.
The three-way, yes.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do because Poe's been dead for like 150 years or something like that.
Aren't all these people dead?
I think Roger Corman's still alive.
Is Corman still
Maybe.
alive?
I bet that's a quick Google for you.
Yeah.
So this week, we've got some classics. If you're a fan of Vincent Price, the next couple of weeks are going to be right up your alley. We're going to start out with The House of Wax from 1953, The House of Usher from 1960, 1962's Premature Burial, where we keep a Corman and lose a Price, and then lastly, The Pit and the Pendulum from 1961.
Well, Roger Corman, good news, is still alive.
Okay.
He's just up there. He's born in 1926.
Is he still got things coming out? Is he working?
Yeah, producer, executive producing stuff.
Okay, well, that's
That
just
counts.
a money job sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we've done some Vincent Price films in the past. We've done The Fly. Oh, what else have we done from him that were from way back?
We did The Tingler, didn't we?
Not yet.
Oh, we didn't do The Tingler yet.
It's on the list. It's coming.
All right.
Yeah, we did the Dr. Phibes movies with some of our first episodes.
That's right.
Yeah, and then all three Fly movies. He was only in the first two, but Vincent Price, he's right up there with Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing. I'd say those are my top 5 horror guys.
A Scream King.
Scream King. Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so let's start out with the oldest one first, House of Wax. Nothing to do with Roger Corman or Poe here, but it was one of his big break. This was his.
It's thought of as
his breakout horror role.
Yeah, it's thought of as sort of typecast him as a horror guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a lot of comedy later on too, but mostly playing on his horror tropes
And classical stuff, and yeah.
But you're right, mostly horror.
I mean, before this, not as much. I mean, he did other things, but this is thought of as this made him a horror movie.
Yeah,
actor.
he was in The Tower of London from 1939, way back when, and that was more drama than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then his 2 roles in The Fly and The Fly 2 were he was the straight man. He wasn't horrible or monstrous or bad. He was the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been in lots of things prior to this as a heroic figure or a supporting character.
Spoiler, he's kind of the villain in this one.
Yeah, he's not the good guy here. All right, so this was 1953. It is in color. Directed by Andre de Toth. Written by Crane Wilbur and Charles Belden. Stars Vincent Price, Frank Lovejoy, and Phyllis Kirk. Hour and 28 minutes.
And this was a 3D movie.
It
was a new thing as far as full-fledged commercially length could be shown at any theater 3D movies. This was one of the first 2 in color. Before this, there was Bawana Devil. There was one the year before that was also a full-length that was thought of as a main... that one's actually thought of as the first mainstream one. But they were dabbling with 3D for decades before this. Bits and pieces and specialties and special things that they could only show at certain theaters, and it wasn't mainstream yet, but this really hit it and made it mainstream.
Yeah, this was the first 3D feature film full length with stereoscopic sound.
Ooh,
so, yeah, a lot of good screams.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and of course, if you want to get a Blu-ray of this or watch it streaming, it's available on. We got a link in the show notes. And I don't know if you can get this in 3D or not. What we watched was the 2D regular TV type version.
Mm-hmm. And it was fun, there's certain shots you could tell clearly that they shot this for 3D, hyping up the 3D effect.
Things coming
towards you,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
All right, well, we open in a wax museum. Shocker. And there are figures and dioramas everywhere. Some of them, I thought, looked a little too realistic. No, they cut corners with some of these and use actors standing still, just in a pose.
Yeah, I think they did, yeah.
Well, there's a sculptor working in the back on a statue, and his name is Henry Jared. Matthew comes in to examine the books. He thinks Henry could make a lot more money if they switched to horror themes, like a Chamber of Horrors, rather than the historical themes he's doing now. Yeah, he's got, Marie Antoinette and... John Wilkes Booth and Lincoln getting shot, and kind of
Historical
boring history
tableaus.
stuff.
Not horror stuff.
Not
yeah.
horror. Well, Matthew wants a faster return on his investment, and he wants to get out of their partnership. Sidney Wallace, an art critic, is considering buying Matthew's shares, and the two men both need his money. Sidney comes over and tours the museum, and he's extremely impressed, and Jared offers to make him a partner. Problem is, Sidney's leaving for Egypt and won't be back for 3 months, but he is very interested.
But the investor wants the money now.
Doesn't want to wait.
Doesn't want to wait.
Matthew comes up with the bright idea, hey, you want to split the $25,000 insurance payment with Jared? All they need is an accidental fire. Well, Jared doesn't want to hurt his friends, the wax dummies, because he talks to them and he acts like they're real. Matthew starts to burn the place down right then in front of him, and the two men fight.
He really doesn't want to wait.
He's like, hey, you want to share an insurance payment? No, I'd burn my friends. And he pulls out the match and starts lighting things. Mm-hmm. Matthew starts to burn the place down right then, and the two men fight. Matthew knocks out Jared and sets the whole place ablaze. Matthew leaves Jared on top of a burning pile with the gas turned on. The two men then fight some more, and Jared gets knocked out a second time. Jared wakes up and heads for the door, but the gas ignites and the building explodes.
And I saw a bit of trivia online
about
the fire getting out of hand. Yeah, they decided, we're going to burn the museum, and set 3 little fires. Well, it got kind of out of hand and actually burned a hole in the soundstage roof even, and fire department was called to control the flames, but the effect was so good, and it would have been so difficult to replace the wax mannequins to burn them again that they kept filming even as the fire department is showing up.
Did it say something? Price got his eyebrows singed or something?
It was easy for him to look alarmed.
All right, well, sometime later, months pass, or maybe years even, Matthew explains to Kathy, his girlfriend, that his old partner was never found. If I had been there, I might have saved him, Matthew explains. The insurance paid it all to him finally, even without a body. He goes to his office, opens up the safe, and takes out the cash. Because, after you brag to your girlfriend about the insurance fraud, you want to go home and count your bills.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Well, this burned-looking man comes into his office and kills him and takes all the money. It's obviously Jared, scarred from his burns. I don't think we're supposed to realize...
We weren't supposed to know that.
Yeah.
But it was so obvious.
You could see his face. I mean, he was burned and deformed, but who else would it have been?
Yeah, exactly.
Kathy and her roommate Sue are 2 working girls in the big city, trying to make the rent. Sue comes home to find Kathy is dead, and the ugly burned man is in the room with her. Sue jumps out the window and runs away, and the man pursues her. There's a chase through the London fog, but she finally escapes him. Later, at the city morgue, Jared sneaks in and steals Kathy's corpse. Well, that's creepy.
Yeah, sure
Sue
is.
then tells the police everything. Sidney Wallace finally comes back from wherever and goes to see Jared, who is now in a wheelchair, but otherwise looks normal.
His hands are kind of funky.
Yeah, his hands are burned and destroyed, but his face looks right. He looks, Vincent Pricey.
Mm-hmm.
Jared explains that he woke up in a doctor's house after the fire, but he can't really explain it. He can't control his hands or legs, and he has this mute assistant, Igor, who can do physical work for him, and a student worker named Leon. He wants financing for his new creations, showcasing crime and horrors. He's even got a wax dummy of Matthew, who hanged himself. And it looks just like Matthew.
Imagine
who coincidentally, his body went missing from the morgue a few weeks ago, too.
Yeah.
Sidney agrees to the investment. Well, the House of Wax has a grand opening. Jared gives a guided tour to the guests, and he demonstrates the various murders and torture devices. A woman faints at the sight. Sue and her friend Scott come to the museum as visitors, and Sue notices that the Joan of Arc statue, and that it looks exactly like her dead friend Kathy. But it couldn't be her because the hair's a different color.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jared explains that he saw her face in the newspaper and used it on this statue. He mentions that Sue has a face that would be great for his new Marie Antoinette figure. Would you like to pose? Oh, yes. That night, the burned man is out on the prowl again, this time outside Sue's window. She sees him, screams, and then decides she dreamed the whole thing. Sue remembers noting that one of Joan of Arc's ears was pierced in the same place as Kathy's ears. Could it be the same girl?
No.
No, that's silly. Scott offers to take her to his police friend to explain what she thinks is impossible. Detective Brennan tells her it's all nonsense. But when she leaves, we see that he takes her ideas a lot more seriously than he let on. Wait, the police say it's all nonsense, but actually believe it?
Yeah,
That's not normal. The next night, Sue goes back to the museum during open hours and climbs up on the Joan of Arc display again. Jared interrupts, and they talk. He's got a wax head of Sue in a box, but he wants her to pose for a better one. The police check out the museum, and several of the wax dummies look like other missing people. One of the cops knows Leon's face from somewhere, but can't place it. Then it hits him. He's a wanted man.
Uh-oh.
They search Leon's house and find a gold watch that was given to the missing city attorney. How'd you get it? I found it.
So, all in all, these are some sloppy criminals.
Yeah. Sue then comes back after hours to meet Scott, who has been sent on an errand. It's dark and creepy in the House of Wax. She once again climbs up on the Joan of Arc statue, and this time she pulls off the black wig, revealing Kathy's golden hair beneath.
Uh-oh.
Now, really, if you were doing this, if you were taking dead bodies, covering them with wax, and pretending they were... wouldn't you shave the head?
Yeah, the hair would not... It would
be a mess
anyway. It wouldn't work. Yeah, the hair would be all messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jared gets up out of the wheelchair and stalks after her. And now here's the thing I didn't understand in the movie. When the burned man is chasing people down the streets, he walks with a limp.
He's clearly got trouble walking.
He walks like the mummy, basically.
I think that was a mistake.
But here, when he reveals himself, he just gets up and walks perfectly normally.
He's just walking just fine. Yeah. I think that was an error. They should have had him still do the limp.
Uh-huh, yep. He's not that healthy. He is burned.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jared and Igor grab her, and she beats on Jared's face, breaking it off and revealing the burned man underneath.
It was a disguise.
That was Jared all the time.
Shocker. We knew that.
Yeah, it was really obvious.
Yeah.
Well, he puts Sue's unconscious body on the table and heats up the wax. He's going to coat her dead body in wax and use her as the next Marie Antoinette. Meanwhile, at the police station, Leon comes clean about the gold thing he stole and tells about Jared's true story. Most of the wax figures are dead bodies.
And realistically, though, that wouldn't work very well. It'd work for a little while.
They smell,
but
even
they
under
would
the wax.
Decompose and bloat, and the wax wouldn't seal it in that well.
No.
Yeah. Realistically.
Maybe a couple of days.
If you overthink it too much,
Bloat?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
I can just see the wax figures getting puffy and
pow!
They just explode
as they
someday.
Decompose. Yeah.
All right, now there's a modern idea for you to come up with.
Ew.
Well, Scott returns to the wax museum and fights Igor. You notice the assistants are always Igor?
This one was.
Igor wins and puts Scott in the guillotine. Just as he is about to pull the rope and behead Scott, the police burst in and capture Igor. Jared runs up the stairs to escape, but is knocked into a huge vat of boiling wax.
And that was Chekhov's wax. We saw that earlier.
You knew somebody was going to end up
whenever
in
you
it.
see a big bubbling vat of anything in a movie, somebody's going to end up in that by the end of the movie.
Yes. Well, Brennan pulls Sue's table away from the equipment before she gets the wax treatment, and everybody lives happily ever after.
Yay.
Yay. Well, this was one of the first full-length 3D color films, and the very first 3D feature with stereoscopic sound. It's easy to spot some really obvious 3D gimmick shots, especially the man with the paddle balls, and later on the dancing girls.
Yeah, they had a guy doing paddle balls and, kind of sing-song chants about the show, trying to draw in audience.
Yeah.
Out on the street
and
in front of the
They
museum.
drew that guy out for like 5 minutes, and he was not part of the story.
But he does
3D
he does the
gimmick.
paddle ball right out at the screen.
And then later there's some dancing girls, and they get their legs way up and all that. And
yeah,
other
there's
than
some
that,
other,
I don't remember
no,
too
there's some
many
other things
really
here and there.
Okay.
Yeah, a few things. Yeah.
Vincent Price's makeup was really good for the day, and his black hat, cloak, and scarred face was iconic. Another one of those Halloween masks you could get.
Yeah.
I don't think we're supposed to realize that the burned man is Jared, at least not until the end, but it's pretty obvious from the first time you see who it is. It's a classic, it deserves the term, really, 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 really good, and it holds up nicely today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Big-
it was an
big
early
thumbs up.
Charles Bronson role, was
Yes.
Igor.
Yes.
And honestly,
Some
if I
of his
hadn't
early
read
work.
that, I'd have never recognized him. It doesn't look like older.
He was young once.
Most people get old and gross. I think Charles Bronson got better looking as he got older, because this guy, he's a mess.
Well, I think they enhanced it some with makeup too to make him look a little more ghastly.
He was definitely, the black
ghastly
lines on
looking.
his face and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They deepened the crags on his face, but he was always kind of craggy. I think.
Oh, always,
Even young.
definitely, yeah. A 12-year-old kid wrinkled.
Craggy. I think craggy is a better way to put it. Not wrinkled.
What's next?
Something by Roger Corman. How about House of Usher?
The House of Usher. If I were going to
not
make...
the House of Usher, just House of Usher.
Not the fall of the House of Usher.
So-
Not the House of Usher. Just House with an H.
And
House of
it's-
Usher.
It's loosely based on Poe.
It's not that far off.
Yeah.
But if I were going to, if I was planning on making a Poe movie, this would not be my first choice.
What would be your first choice?
I don't know. Nothing really. If you look at Poe's stories, the Raven is kind of cool, but nothing happens. It's a guy looking at a window.
Mm-hmm. The Telltale Heart, that's been done.
That's been done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard to translate them into movies.
It is.
Which
And
is why they're always loosely based on Poe's work.
Well, a lot of them are
Most
actual
of- most-
poems and
most
don't
of-
really even have much of a story, like the Raven.
Right.
Well, this is 1960's House of Usher, directed by Roger Corman, written by Richard Matheson, stars Vincent Price, Mark Damon, and Myrna Fahey. Hour and 19 minutes. Did you like it?
I did.
All right.
It was okay. Didn't like it as much as House of Wax. My gosh, Roger Corman's credits.
Oh yes, he's busy.
Yeah.
How many's he got there?
Well, he's got actually his biggest work has been as producer. He's got over 400 movies and shows that he has produced. And then 56 directing, 43 as actor, 11 as writer, 13 as just additional crew. 73 thanks.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah.
No, it goes up to 74. All right. So, Philip rides his horse to the huge, neglected old house on the moors. It's all very gothic and dark, but he ties up his horse and knocks on the door. He asks the butler to see Miss Usher. The butler has orders from Roderick Usher not to allow anyone in. When Philip says he's Madeline Usher's fiancé, the butler relents.
Oh, well, in that case.
Before he can see Roderick, the butler instructs Philip to take his boots off, which is odd. The butler then gives him slippers. Roderick's not happy to see Philip, but agrees to talk. Roderick's senses are overloaded, especially his hearing, which is why Philip had to remove his shoes. Roderick explains that Madeline is confined to her bed. As they argue, Madeline comes in and insists that Philip be allowed to stay with them. Roderick explains to Philip that he can't marry Madeline because the Usher line is tainted. We're dying, Mr. Winthrop. There's some genetic problem with the family, and Roderick is sure that they are both dying. A large portion of his family have gone mad from the heightening of the senses. Roderick warns Philip to leave, but Philip refuses.
And here we have apparently the last two in the genetic line. Mm-hmm. And, not that I'm that big of a proponent of eugenics or anything, but, you hear about family lines where they've got this, and sometimes they're really horrific, where they, shrivel up and die by the age of 50, or, various terrible genetic, and yet they keep having kids.
Inbreeds.
Well, not even.
I think in this
not
case,
even inbreeds.
that was kind of
well.
implied.
I think that was the implication here with the Usher line. Yeah. yeah. But he's ranting and raving about how horrible it is and stuff. And I guess he didn't have kids, but
All his
I have heard,
previous ancestors did.
real life cases of and they're ranting and raving about how horrible it is, and so, well, and you have kids, there's a solution to this. And it's a lot to ask people not to have kids. I realize that it's very, very important to a lot of people.
Send your letters
but
to
for
Kevin.
Crying out loud, if you stopped having kids, this this genetic line would stop.
Okay. So,
anyway,
yeah.
that's my little half step soapbox.
Send your complaints to Kevin.
There's a solution here, folks.
All righty. Well, that night there's a small earthquake, or maybe it's just the building itself. Philip narrowly avoids getting crushed by a falling chandelier. This house has serious structural problems. Roderick seems very overprotective of his sister, but she doesn't really seem all that sickly. Did you see her being sick at all?
Not at all, no. She seemed very perky and healthy. Yeah.
Roderick tries...
She didn't even seem to be as affected by the sensory overload as he was.
She never commented on hearing things.
She did like the darkened rooms. She kept the blinds drawn all the time and said she couldn't stand the sunshine. But other than that, yeah.
That's just because she's a goth girl.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Roderick tries to persuade Madeline to stay with him, while Philip tries to convince her to run away with him back to Boston. That night, Philip goes exploring in the rotting old house. He finds Madeline sleeping in the chapel. You got a big house if you got a chapel.
Yeah, it was massive.
She walks in her sleep, and Philip gets some answers from Bristol the butler. Madeline also tells Philip that she's going to die soon. She leads him to the family tombs down in the basement. She's literally got a coffin down there with her name already on it, right next to her brother's coffin with his name on it. It waits for me, explains Madeline. One of her dead relatives nearly falls on Philip. So here's a question for the audience. Everybody advertises that you should prepay for your own funeral.
How about if you just have them in the basement all ready to go?
How many of you have a coffin with your name on it? Well, all right then.
In a crypt downstairs.
With
all the other
waiting
family
for
members.
you.
Yeah.
Roderick explains how the land nearby has become cursed and has all died. Nothing can grow here, and the house is dying as well. A plague of evil, he explains about the family history. He then shows some very cool paintings of all his depraved relatives.
Yeah, those are awesome paintings.
I think
awesome
the paintings
portraits.
are the best part of this. I want those paintings. Philip thinks there's nothing wrong that leaving the house won't cure, and Madeline finally agrees to leave with him today. They start to pack their things. Madeline and Roderick argue, and she winds up dead. Her heart couldn't stand the strain. And this all happens behind a locked door, and we don't see what really went on.
Uh-huh.
They have a simple funeral and carry her down to the family crypt. As they head upstairs, we hear Madeline breathing, and then she lets out a scream. Bristol mentions that the Usher people have been prone to catalepsy, which sets off Philip to go and re-examine the body. He goes down to the tomb and finds the biggest padlock ever made is sealing the coffin shut. Still, he breaks it open to find her body is gone. Roderick says she's in a secret place now. You buried her alive, Philip accuses. I did, but she's dead now, explains Roderick.
Yeah, he's a little weird that way.
I've noticed watching some other of these Poe films that catalepsy seems to come up quite a bit.
Yeah.
That was a
That was something, one of
Phobias?
Phobias,
Yes.
Phobias, yeah.
That night, Philip has a dream about all the dead Usher family members, including Roderick and Madeline. And they look just like the paintings, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Philip confronts Roderick, and he starts to think that Madeline may still be alive in her coffin somewhere. He rushes back down to the crypt, and they find the place trashed. She has the madness, states Roderick. Well, a minute ago you said she was dead.
Well, that was before you saw the smashed up room.
Yeah, don't believe Roderick. He lies. They all split up to find where she's gone. Philip finds Madeline, and she attacks him. Bristol comes in and says the house is getting ready to collapse at any moment. There's some timing for you.
It is, yeah.
Finally, Madeline confronts Roderick. She strangles him just as the house catches fire. Bristol drags Philip outside as the whole building is engulfed in flames and the two ushers burn. The next morning, we see what's left of the house sink into the swamp.
The end.
Yeah.
Pretty grim. A grim ending.
Very much,
Not
yes.
a happy ending on this one.
Well, a lot of Poe things aren't real happy endings.
That's true.
Well, the cast is only 4 people, and they all do a good job with the limited action of the story. It's all very talky. There's no fighting. There's no action.
Well, there's some at the end there where she strangles him.
Well,
Yeah, goes after him.
he's easy to take on. Bristol the butler was made up to look older than the actor, which I thought was a little annoying because it wasn't a great job.
It wasn't a great age
You
makeup.
mentioned in House of Wax that Charles Bronson had the black lines on his face to highlight his cragginess.
But I don't think it looked, it didn't look fake. You didn't look at it and
This
say,
looked fake.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, I don't think the guy, he didn't look real young, but why couldn't you just have a younger butler?
And it's one of those makeup jobs where you draw lines on their forehead and
Look, he's old
Look,
now.
it's wrinkles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did make some changes to the original Poe story. Here, Philip is Madeline's friend, not Roderick's like in the original story. This allows for a lot more conflict between the two men. Later on, Roderick buries Madeline on purpose here, unlike in the story where it's sort of an accident. So yeah, it's kind of the same, it's kind of not.
Yeah, similarities based on Poe.
The house set is perfect for the film, huge, old, and creepy, but maybe a little too solid to really show how much the place is supposed to be falling down. Unlike the later Roger Corman-Vincent Price collaborations, there's really no humor here at all.
Mm-mm.
They play the whole thing straight, and it's all very melodramatic.
And Roderick's I think I used the expression that he's a bottomless pit of despair. He just is. He's seriously unhappy in this.
It's a good film, but not what I would call great.
I liked it. It
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Hey, let's take a break and talk about a short film.
I like,
We saw
I like
a short
movies.
film
We
this
should have
week.
we should have a movie night, don't you think?
That's what it is. It's Movie Night from 2020. Written and directed by Matt Rosenblatt. Stars Skeeta Jenkins and Natalie Jones. Runtime 7 minutes, and there's a link to watch in the show notes.
Was that Matt that brought this to your attention?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Matt submitted
We
it.
were contacted and
I
asked
think we've
to
gotten
review
other
this,
things
and-
from him. I'm not sure now.
Yeah, and we were pleased.
Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
one. So he wants the man wants none of the characters are named. So he wants to watch a movie, but she's got to leave right afterwards. They're gonna watch. Hey, it's Night of the Living Dead, and he decides to make popcorn.
And for those that aren't aware, Night of the Living Dead has no royalties or royalty free. There was some slip up with
Seems
registration
like in
and
short
so forth.
films and indie
And-
films, whenever you see somebody watching a movie on TV,
Exactly.
It's
They can
always-
watch this one without any copyright violation or anything.
Yeah.
So when you see that in shorts and stuff, that's why. And it's a common one that you do see.
if you're making a movie and you need to have a movie in your movie, Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, which it's perfect.
Plus, it's
Yeah.
got good sound bites. It's things to
and
listen
it's a
to.
great movie. but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the timer beeps, and she goes to get the finished popcorn. She comes back and gets settled, and then the videotape changes to something she wasn't expecting. It's not a used tape, but it's like somebody recorded over things.
I like how this was. You're not sure, is she up to something? Is he up to something? Are they both up to something? You don't know what's going on with the two
Yeah,
of
you're
them.
going to need to watch it and find out.
Or is it just an awkward date where they don't really know each other very well?
Or is it just bad luck and they got a used videotape?
Yeah.
Well, she didn't seem to be that much into him anyway. Yeah, I kind of thought it looked like she was eager to leave, and he says, "Let's watch a movie," and she's like,
Yeah.
just the faces she was making. Looked like she didn't really want to be there. Some people get positively distraught when they aren't invited to movie night, so invite your friends today. And yes, it was definitely fun and had a few good surprises, so check it out.
Yeah, definitely a thumbs up.
All right. Speaking of few surprises, The Pit and the Pendulum, 1961.
Boy, talk about loosely based on the Poe story. It's got a pit and a pendulum in it.
What, the rest of the story was? I don't remember Poe's Pit and the Pendulum.
There's not
I don't
really-
remember that one much.
Not really a whole lot to the story. It's a guy, he's imprisoned during the Inquisition. And they strap him to the pendulum thing, where the pendulum is slowly coming lower and lower, and he gets out of that by, I think, tricking the rats into chewing through his straps.
Yes, I remember that.
And then he gets locked into another prison cell, and then the people come and break up the Inquisition, and he gets rescued.
The Inquisition?
Yeah, you never expect that.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Well, this one's directed by Roger Corman, written by Richard Matheson, stars Vincent Price, Barbara Steele, John Kerr, hour and 20 minutes. If you must have one, Amazon link in the show notes. What'd you think? Did you like it?
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah.
I remember when I was little, this would show like every Saturday, and I thought it was boring.
I had never seen it before.
Oh, you never saw it before?
No.
Okay, I've seen this one a lot.
No, I hadn't.
One of my least favorite Vincent Price movies, just because it just drags, I thought.
It's okay. Yeah.
And I as an adult watching it, it's not as bad as that, but it's not great.
Yeah, I was entertained more than not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Francis Bernard gets dropped off a mile down the beach from the old castle on the hill because the driver won't go any closer. They admit him and ask to spend the night. Francis wants to see Nicholas, but he hasn't been feeling well since the death of Francis's sister Elizabeth. Why would the driver not go to the castle?
Because the house is cursed. Cursed, I say.
Because the one woman died there?
I don't know.
People die all the time.
Big scary castle. Yeah,
it's not like there's rumors or ghosts or legends.
It didn't seem to be as clear in this one. It's not like it was not
no
like
vampires,
Dracula's castle. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, well, Nicholas and Elizabeth were married, but she died soon thereafter of something in her blood. He wants to, which is kind of vague.
It is vague, yeah.
Yeah, he wants to see Elizabeth's resting place, so Catherine leads him downstairs to the tombs. He runs into Nicholas coming out of a room down there. Something really noisy in that room. Francis seems suspicious about the manner of Elizabeth's death, so he plans to stay and investigate. Actually, he kind of insists. He's a jerk.
A little bit.
There's a painting of Sebastian Medina, Nicholas's father, who looks just like him. Vincent Price, I'd love to see what his real father looked like, because in all these movies it looks just like him. All right, well, Nicholas explains how much he loved Elizabeth and that he had nothing to do with her death. Dr. Leon comes to dinner, and he also talks about Elizabeth's illness. She died of fright. Francis wants to know precisely what happened, and they all go downstairs to the torture chamber. She could not keep herself away, explains Nicholas. Nicholas explains that his father was a depraved man who loved to torture people in the room. We then get a flashback of Nicholas painting Elizabeth. After a while, she stopped sleeping and eating. She started sleepwalking. She became obsessed with his torture chamber. Nicholas wanted the two of them to go away for a while, but before they could actually do it, Elizabeth died. She locked herself in the Iron Maiden, but before she died, she said the name, Sebastian.
Sebastian. We
We then get another flashback of the...
No, that's a different movie.
Different movie, yes. That would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We could then get another flashback of very young Nicholas sneaking into the chamber to watch his father Sebastian, torturing his mother and uncle. It seems his mother and uncle were committing adultery, and Sebastian found out. He killed them both. That night, they all hear someone playing the harpsichord. Nicholas has never played in his life, says Catherine as they follow the sound. Nicholas says it's Elizabeth playing, and they find her ring on the instrument. Well, the doctor tells Catherine and Francis the family secrets. Nicholas believes that Elizabeth was buried alive, but the doctor insists that this isn't what happened. The doctor explains that young Nicholas actually saw his mother walled up in the tomb while still alive after the torturing, and that's why he's so obsessed. What? Buried alive?
What? Another theme? What?
Well, the maid thinks she heard Elizabeth's voice, so Nicholas locks up her bedroom. Someone destroys the painting in that room later the same day.
What kind of trash is the room, too?
Yep, Francis finds a secret passage that leads to Nicholas's bedroom and accuses him of faking the whole thing. Nicholas doesn't deny it, but instead thinks maybe he's going mad, or maybe he's possessed by his father. To prove the matter one way or the other, they decide to exhume Elizabeth. They get the pick and shovel and break down the wall of the tomb. They open the coffin, and sure enough, she was buried alive.
Whoops.
Nicholas then goes full Looney Tunes. He imagines hearing her voice calling to him from the secret passage. He goes in and wanders through all the maze of tunnels until he gets to the crypt. He watches her rise from the tomb and chase him into the torture chamber. Nicholas is catatonic from fright. The doctor comes in and tells Elizabeth, "I told you to wait." It seems this whole thing has been a conspiracy between secret lovers, Dr. Leon and Elizabeth, who isn't dead. She gloats over Nicholas, who laughs maniacally.
And then really goes Looney Tunes.
Nicholas stands up, and he now thinks the doctor and Elizabeth are his mother and uncle, and that he is his father. He's going to torture them. He closes her up in the Iron Maiden. The doctor runs away into the other torture chamber and falls to his death in the pit.
The pit.
Nicholas, who's totally delusional now, whacks Francis over the head and puts him in the pit in the pendulum device. Francis is tied down to a platform suspended over a huge pit. Above him, a large razor-sharp blade mounted to a pendulum that swings back and forth, going lower and lower with each swing until it's going to cut him in half. Zhoom, zhoom.
Javoom.
Catherine hears Francis scream, and she goes to find the servant to help break in the door. The two break in, and Nicholas falls into the pit. Then they raise the pendulum before it cuts Francis in half. They release Francis and go upstairs, passing the bodies of Dr. Leon and Nicholas on the way out. As they head upstairs, never to return, we get a shot of Elizabeth still trapped in the Iron Maiden forever.
She got her comeuppance.
Yes, she did. Well, this couldn't be any more gothic if it tried. The big old castle, dark and stormy night, the costumes, the dungeon,
Classic.
There's no more gothic available. They bought out the gothic store. Francis couldn't be any more aggressive and antagonistic. He's just belligerent in every scene. It makes sense early on, but not so much after he starts getting answers. He eventually apologizes to Catherine, but he's still an ass, and it's too late. The pit the pendulum set in the climax is a pretty impressive contraption. The actual torture scene in the end is maybe dragged out a little bit too long, but otherwise it's well paced and well acted. So yeah, I guess I've reversed from saying it drags when I was little.
It didn't drag so much. No, I thought it was okay. Yeah, entertaining. And I did look up a picture of Vincent Leonard Price.
He looks like Tesla.
His father. Yeah, he looks...
Yeah, that doesn't look like an evil Vincent Price.
Looks more like Tesla than Vincent Price.
Sure does. Yeah. Okay.
So not like in the movies. No, not an exact resemblance.
All right, so let's give Vincent Price the day off now and go to The Premature Burial, 1962. Directed by Roger Corman, based on another Edgar Allan Poe story. Written by Charles Beaumont, Ray Russell, stars Ray Milland. It's the man with the X-ray eyes.
Yeah, and
he's
other
the
stuff.
Two-headed monster.
And the two-headed transplant guy.
The two-headed guy, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hazel Court and Richard Ney, hour and 21 minutes. And if you haven't seen this one, there is, of course, an Amazon link. What'd you think of this one?
I liked this one better than Pendulum.
Me too. Although this one was kind of dumb in its own way.
Well, a little bit, but obsession takes many forms.
Oh, yeah, it does.
He was obsessed.
His OCD is, yeah.
Well, again, it's a premature burial thing.
Oh, yeah, obviously, yeah.
Another
that
poism.
What is that, all of them? No, Hasselwax didn't care. Well, a group of men stand by while two workers dig up a grave. They hit a coffin and open the lid. There are bloody fingernail prints on the inside of the lid. Uh-oh. The man inside clearly wasn't dead when they buried him. Credits roll. Emily goes to see Guy, who tells Kate that he doesn't want to see her. He explains, "I do love you. Now, please go away."
What?
Mixed signals there.
Yeah, what?
He's been having nightmares since the exhumation.
Yeah, he was there watching.
Yeah, he was
saw
watching.
it being exhumed.
"There can never be a marriage between us," he says. leading her downstairs to the family crypts. He tells how his father was buried alive, and now he takes laudanum to help him sleep. Guy lives in fear of being buried alive.
And this was a common theme through these movies, too. It was hard to tell when somebody's dead back then, I guess.
Was it really, or is that just a Poe cliche?
I think it's very much a more of a Poe cliche.
Yeah. I'm sure people did get buried alive. I mean, yeah, people in comas and catalepsy, like they're talking about here.
But this was also a reason where, viewings were a thing, to make sure.
There was also a reason embalming was a thing.
Well,
you're not going to get up again after
that's
that.
Part of the reason of it, yeah.
Well, every member of my family died in a horrible and violent death. Now I await my turn. His older sister is Kate, who insists the story just isn't true. Eventually, Guy and Emily get married anyway. Family friend Miles is there, as is Dr. Galt, Emily's father. Guy gets a headache and leaves the party early to go lay down. Not tonight, I have a headache. It's our wedding night. Oh well. They find the family dog outside dead and make plans to bury him. Then the dog gets up. He was only stunned.
Oh, he's not dead.
Guy freaks out because he was about to bury the dog alive. But they weren't going to bury the dog alive. They said, let's bury him in the morning.
Yeah.
All these problems would be solved if they just let the dead person sit for a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Guy won't let Emily bring flowers into the house. Ever.
It smells like a funeral.
Emily tells Miles about her marital problems. Guy is ill, referring to a mental illness this time. Well, Guy's been building this huge marble mausoleum on the property. It's a nice place.
It's a man cave.
I wouldn't mind having this one.
Yeah.
It's got a nice place with brandy, a piano, chairs, secret exits, and all the comforts of home in his morbid man cave. The coffin has a drill, hammer, saw, and other escape tools right on the inside of the coffin lid. There's additional tools over in a chest. The wall and lid are spring-loaded and open at a touch. He really has thought of everything.
And then he's got a secret exit door, and even the skylight will open if you pull on a chain. And
as a very last resort, he's got a cache of dynamite stored in there to blow the walls down. Yeah, and as a very last resort, he's got poison to take to make sure he won't suffer. Well, that's thorough.
That's thorough.
Yeah. But is it enough?
No.
No. How many times are you going to check you lock that door? How many times are you going to make sure you're not going to get buried alive?
As demonstrated later, which I think you might mention, he has a nightmare where all these things fail. He's still not satisfied or at peace about it.
We get to that.
Yeah.
So Miles rents out a room from Guy to perform his medical experiments. He demonstrates how to use a battery to make a dead frog twitch. He's like little Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm. Frankenstein light.
Every once in a while, Guy just needs to get out of that morbid, deathly house, so he goes for a chipper and fun walk in the cemetery, which is so much better. On one of these walks, he hears a gravedigger whistling the tune he remembers from the pre-credit sequence. He gets a scare and dreams he's in the mausoleum, but none of the gadgets work. And yeah, we see the dream you were talking about where everything fails.
Mm-hmm. And then he's set off again. His obsession is back in full swing.
Miles and Emily find him laying in the cemetery with no sign of the gravediggers. They all talk about Guy while he rests, and Kate swears that her father rests in peace. No one has ever been buried alive in their family. It really is all in his head. Finally, Emily gives Guy an ultimatum. Her or his mausoleum. She insists that, I don't know, toss up with that mausoleum? I'd be thinking of the mausoleum. It's a nice mausoleum.
I don't know. It's a difficult choice.
She insists that he destroy the building. Well, boom. He dynamites the place and invites Miles to a party Friday night. Kate starts looking sideways at Guy as if she has something up her sleeve. Friday night at the party, they all hear the cat, who seems to be trapped in the walls. This gets Guy all upset again and prompts Miles to make a challenge. Hey, let's all go down to the crypt and open up Guy's father's tomb. Sounds like a fun thing to do at a Friday party.
Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, they open the tomb, and the skeleton falls out right on top of Guy, who dies from shock. Boom. Yeah, right. Sure, he's dead.
Sure.
Dr. Galt pronounces him dead from a heart attack. Well, we hear Guy talking inside his head, but no one else can hear him. Miles gets out his battery and shocks the corpse to verify, yep, he's dead. And there's a funeral. Instead of the creepy crypt, they take him to a freshly dug grave and just bury him. Well, that's what you call following instructions.
Yeah. Well, he blew up his nice crypt, though.
Well, they still got the crypt in the basement.
Yeah.
Better than nothing.
Could have stuck him there.
Kate asks how long until Emily is going to leave, and there's a bit of a fight between the two women. Meanwhile, Dr. Galt has ordered the gravediggers to dig up Guy for his experimental research. Surprise! Guy is back and he's not happy.
And he is pissed.
He kills both gravediggers and Dr. Galt as well. Meanwhile, Emily and Miles are getting a little closer in her bedroom. After all, they buried her husband just a few hours earlier. The butler takes Miles down to the lab to see the bodies, and Guy finds Emily alone in her bedroom. The next thing we see is Guy carrying Emily through the cemetery. He wants revenge for all this, but she blames Kate. He buries her alive as retribution. Miles and Guy fight over the open grave, and just as Guy is about to behead Miles, Kate shoots him in the back, killing him for real.
For reals this time.
By the time they dig up Emily, she's dead too. Kate explains that Emily did it. She made it all look like Guy's father had been buried alive. She'd been feeding his fear all along. The cat in the wall, the grave robbers chasing him. Yep, Emily was behind everything.
And she gets her comeuppance.
Yeah, she get buried alive.
Yeah.
Well, this is what happens when rich people have too much time on their hands. The whole idea is pretty ridiculous. I'm sure there have been people who have had bury me phobia, but not taken to this kind of extreme. Yeah, okay.
He was obsessed.
Way, yes. Yeah. It's all a little far-fetched, but the acting is pretty good, and the sets are impressive for all being done on a stage. There were no real cemeteries used in this film. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It was entertaining. Yeah, it was good. I liked it.
Again, if you're interested in getting buried alive, 3 out of 4 of these films say it's a bad thing.
It is. In general, yeah.
All right. Hey, that's our show.
It is.
Thanks for stopping in, and check out our website, horrormovieguys.com, for news and horror updates. Check us out at our Facebook group, Horror Movie Guys, or on Twitter at Horror Movie Guys. And if you really want to, go to horrorguys.com/books and pick up one of our various horror-based books. Say, hey, are you sick of Vincent Price? You want more of him? You want less of him?
I want more Vincent Price.
More Vincent Price?
I want all the Vincent Price.
Well,
I'm in luck, aren't I?
Next week, we're going to begin with, what do we got?
Well, we got Tales of Terror from 1962.
All right.
Comedy of Terrors from 1963.
Ooh, funny.
And then we'll take a trip to the Haunted Palace. And that was kind of a mashup of Poe and Lovecraft. Yeah.
I had not seen that one before.
I have not, yeah. And we'll have a laugh with The Raven. Also
I've seen The Raven plenty of times.
1963. I think I might have seen that.
That one's way more comedy than anything else. Yeah. You have seen it, you think?
I think so.
All right.
Long time, yeah.
So that's, I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.